Hello, Sunshine. I'm Alexi Lawless, and welcome to the State of the Union podcast, where we look at the beautiful game on and off the field through the lens of red, white, and blue colored glasses. This week, we'll be talking, we'll be talking U.S. men's national team. We'll also do some other stuff around the world and some stuff that we've watched. But first, as always, joining me, my friend, my colleague, my guiding light, David Mosse, a soccer savant and a Fox Soccer researcher and writer extraordinaire. Mosse, how are you on this Monday, March 21st in the year 2022?
I am doing well after what I must confess was a very enjoyable weekend of basketball.
The tournament's happening, right?
Correct.
And so you spent much of your time watching all of the basketball teams play, right?
Yes. So on Saturday, Michigan defeated Tennessee to advance to the Sweet 16. And then on Sunday, I hit for the Schadenfreude Grand Slam.
Okay.
I got to watch in succession Illinois, Ohio State, Michigan State, and Wisconsin all lose. So
I saw some of it because I was out and about, and you can't help but see it. And I was at a little NCAA party with my good friend Rob Stone at one point, and his Colgate not the Red Raiders, just the Raiders now. They're not the longer the Red Raiders. The Raiders were evidently in the tournament. My Rutgers obviously bombed out in the play-in game, so my Rutgers Scarlet Knights. So they were not long for the tournament. Do you count it as being in the tournament, even if you're in the play-in game?
I do not.
You don't. All right. Well, you stand on principle when it comes to something like that. But anyway, Colgate went out, and so I watched all the different games that were going on, and I would walk into an establishment, and everybody was going crazy. Did you have any money on what happened this weekend?
No.
Oh, you did?
I don't believe in gambling.
Oh, yeah, of course not. You're there for the love of the game. Okay. Well, all right. But your Michigan team now is in the Sweet 16. Is that what they call it?
Correct.
And you're playing against who?
Villanova on Thursday.
And is Villanova any good?
Very good. They beat us in the 2018 championship game, so this is being billed as Michigan's shot at revenge, but they are very good again this year. They are clear favorites here.
Now, your reformed and presumably rehabilitated coach is back on the sideline, right?
Correct. In fact, he was involved in just a beautiful moment at the end of that Tennessee game. I know that even moved you to see him consoling.
He was consoling and cradling one of the opposition after beating them. An incredible juxtaposition between the two pictures.
Come a long way.
He certainly has come a long way. I think he's learned his lesson.
Fellow Fab Fivers Chris Webber and Ray Jackson were at the game. They celebrated in the locker room afterwards. I know that means nothing to you, but that's a big deal. Chris Webber has a very difficult relationship with the program, with the university, and the fact that Juwan Howard being the coach has brought Webber back into the family. It was beautiful to see.
So of the Fab Five, that would be three of the Fab Five were there?
Right. And Jalen Rose attended the first round game against Colorado State.
Right.
So.
And who are we missing?
Jimmy King.
Oh, Jimmy.
Not sure where he's at.
Difficult. That's all right. That's okay. Well, maybe we'll get all five of them back. By the way, apologies for last week. I know that we didn't do a show last week, and that was my last minute call. I was on the road. I was in Miami. I was at SoccerX, and there was a lot of stuff going on. I don't like to do that, and as I said in my little blurb there, that should have shown up in your timeline there. It hurts me to the core to have to do that, but it could not have been helped. So thank you.
Did I read right that one of the moderators at that conference was Jason Wormser?
Yes, Jason Wormser. He did a really interesting panel about the state of broadcasting, and broadcasting rights is what he was focused on. And it was really interesting because he gave a real, top to bottom outline of the interesting world in which we live in. And, all these panels were well attended. It was a really cool event. It's called SoccerX. It's happened many, many years down in Miami. This was the first year after the pandemic that we've actually done it in person. They do it in England. They've done it in Manchester and London. They've done one in China. I think they're doing one in Colombia. And it just brings a lot of different people from around the world and best practices and much of the business of soccer. So it was really fun and interesting. I interviewed Victor Montagliani, the president of CONCACAF. I interviewed Don Garber, commissioner of Major League Soccer. Stu Holden was there. He did a panel on, which was also really interesting, on how Inter Miami came about with the pink jersey that they have right now, and that whole process and all the crazy stuff that goes on behind the scenes to actually get it to market. So that was fun. Did you watch anything, my friend?
Tons, but I'm going to just highlight two things, both sports related. I've already finished the latest season of Drive to Survive, which was phenomenal.
My daughter's watching that.
Yeah, I mean, there have been loads of articles written about this, but what that show has done for the popularity of that sport has been truly amazing. I talked to so many people now who weren't Formula One fans before.
Do you really?
And based
Because I was talking to my daughter about that, and I said, how many people are now actually tuning in to watch these races simply because of the characters that have been developed and the storylines and the drama that
they did such a good job depicting the Verstappen-Hamilton controversy at the end there. And now the 2022 season has just begun, so we're off and running on that. And then the other sports-related program, I'm very into this show Winning Time on HBO, which is about the rise of the Lakers dynasty.
Oh, yeah.
It's been somewhat controversial, particularly the portrayal of Jerry West. They're taking some dramatic license.
Okay.
But still, I've found it thoroughly entertaining.
But that's another weekly. The episodes
Weekly,
showed up
yes.
every week. Yeah, I'm not watching that. Let's see what I watched. Bad Vegan on Netflix. It's a documentary about this nutty woman that was incredibly successful for this vegan restaurant that she came about, and then this guy that basically swindled her out of all this money, and it's the whole thing's sketchy, okay? And she is very strange in this, in that she kind of washes her hands and plays the victim in a lot of this, and not completely, but it's well worth your time. It's a really interesting look into this crazy relationship that they have and the business behind it, and how people can make you believe one thing and you may not know the person, even some people that are very, very close to you. The other one is Phoenix Rising on HBO. Evan Rachel Wood documents her, from watching this incredibly horrific relationship that she had with Marilyn Manson, one of the musicians. And it should be said that everybody is innocent until proven guilty, and this is her side of this story. I think it does run into a bit of a problematic thing in that if you have a documentary that involves actors, and she is an actor, I don't know, maybe this is just me, but I worry that they are acting in this. And we're all actors, right? All the world's a stage. But for actors in particular, the whole world is a stage, including a documentary. And that's not me questioning her credibility, but being able to separate that out, I think, is sometimes difficult. And then there's something that I just happened across called 5 Days. It's a BBC miniseries. It's also on HBO, and it came out a long time ago, and I was just scrolling through at one point. It was really good. It's 5 or 6 episodes about and it's a drama, and it's fiction, and about a kidnapped mother and the race against time to find out where she and her 2 children are. So those are the 3 ones that I have. All right, listen, we've taken up a long time here, but this is, I'd say, arguably the most important week in men's soccer in a long time when it comes to the U.S. men's national team. And certainly the most important 10 days, I guess, in Greg Berhalter's tenure. We are staring into the abyss. We are here at this final window, which is going to decide whether this U.S. team qualifies for a World Cup. And because it is such an important and monumental type of moment here, I thought I'd get back and do a State of the Union. So, as you know, we start off the pods in normal times with the State of the Union, as I have done here. And this week, it goes a little something like this. So here we are, 5 years on from the greatest failure in U.S. soccer history, and we find ourselves once again right on the precipice of qualifying for the World Cup, knowing it can all crumble away so quickly and easily. We're understandably scarred and sensitive from the pain that the previous cycle wrought. We carry the knowledge that, despite overwhelming odds in our favor, the potential for disaster exists. We have precedents. Yes, the world has changed, and so has this team. But many of the same hopes and fears remain. Back then, I ranted ahead of the final phase of qualifying about the dangers of complacency and the need for players to step up and get the job done. But not this time. This team is different, I think. This team was born from the ashes of that epic failure and motivated by the desire that, on their watch, things would be different. A new generation of exciting, ambitious, and confident young American players with swagger. Well, this is where we find out who they really are and if they're worthy of this optimism. 3 games to play: away versus Mexico, home versus Panama, and away versus Costa Rica. 5 points, and the U.S. qualifies. 4 points, and it's a 98% chance the U.S. qualifies. 3 points, and it's an 86% chance that the U.S. qualifies. Once again, it's in the palm of our hand, just waiting to be grabbed. If this team needs motivation, we've already failed. Don't let it slip away. Be bold. Be confident. Be ruthless. Take what's yours, because we can't afford to waste it again. All right, Mossy. So there is my State of the Union. And, I mentioned it a little bit in there. This time back in 2017, I had already started worrying, and the angst was palpable for me and so many others. And then obviously to have what happened, we, as I said in the State of the Union, are scarred. But I'm not, as I said, I'm not at the moment where I'm ready to scream and yell. And I don't feel that, not necessarily it was ever my job, but I don't feel the need to highlight or emphasize how important this moment is for this team. And in particular, it's because of this team. How confident are you right now? And I did all the numbers in the State of the Union there, but how confident are you right now that this men's national team is going to qualify for Qatar?
Very confident, because one thing they've done in this qualifying campaign, they've, for the most part, taken care of business at home. And that's all they really need to do in this window. Just win that Panama game, which, by the way, is something they did 4 years ago. If you recall, they hammered Panama in the second to last game. It was an away defeat that sealed their fate. So they've gotten it here where they can virtually secure qualification. In fact, depending on how results go, they might be able to secure qualification just by beating Panama. So I think they will, and that's what makes me supremely confident they'll qualify.
Okay, so let's go through. There's 3 games, as we mentioned. First game in Mexico, second game at home in Orlando, which you can see on FS1 against Panama, and then that third game away against Costa Rica. This is an interesting window, and I think a lot of the discussion right now is about this window and how Greg Berhalter and this group of players approaches these games. We all know that it's about qualifying. Nobody really cares. I talked to Victor Montagliani the other day, and I said, I was busting his balls. I was like, you're Canadian, because he was the head of Canada, and he's from Canada. And I said, your team's going to lose all 3 games. The U.S. is going to win all 3 games, and we're going to end up finishing first. And he was like, I don't care. Like, all that matters to him is that Canada qualifies for the World Cup. And really, that is all that matters. Nobody ever looks back and remembers, they qualified 1 or 2 or 3. You just qualify for the World Cup. So the strategy of these 3 games, I think, is fascinating to see what Greg Berhalter is going to do. And I want to ask you about what you think is going to happen, because the Mexico game, this is a Mexico team that, in my estimation, I don't think that there has been a weaker Mexico team in the time that I have been following U.S. soccer. Going all the way back probably to 1990 when we qualified for the first time after many, many years. They are playing in an Azteca stadium that is not even close to what Azteca was in its heyday, and even less so now because of the upgrades that they have made and the changes that we have made, and the fact that it's not only going to be full. Also, Costa Rica away, which traditionally has been an elite team. This is not a good Costa Rica team, despite the fact that they have come on of late. So there are opportunities on the road for both of these games. But to your point, do you put all your eggs in that one basket that is Panama?
I do. I know that's been the big philosophical debate the last few days, and I'm in the Matt Doyle, Stu Holden camp, I'll call it, where, you rest guys against Mexico and make sure you're able to put out your best possible team from the squad you have available to you against Panama. So no guys that are in yellow card jeopardy, no guys that you think might be injury question marks if you put them on the field at Azteca. So I would do that. And then if you get something from the Mexico game, great. But if not, at least you will have done nothing that night to detract from your chances of beating Panama. Okay,
so my question to you, as was my question to Stu when we were talking about this on the weekend, was why start Christian Pulisic?
Well, Stu got caught there. Just to look behind the curtain here. He originally had Aronson in his starting lineup for that game, and then the Aronson injury occurred. And by the way, we're taping this on a Monday. As we sit here today, we're still not quite sure. You're hearing such
very strange,
different He's either out 4 weeks or day to day.
It's very strange.
But so Stu decided to take Aronson out of his Mexico lineup because Stu, in our pregame for our MLS game this weekend, Stu gave his lineup for both the Mexico and Panama games. And for the most part, he rotated against Mexico. But yeah, then when he was forced to pull out Aronson, he put Pulisic in, which I agree with you, completely contradicted the whole premise that he was going for there. So Stu deserved your ribbing on that because that made no sense. I would not start Pulisic.
And so everybody knows, Adams, Weah, Yedlin, Stefan, and Pefok are all on yellows. So according to you, you don't start any of those guys because they're all on yellows.
I mean, Stefan, managers rarely worry about goalkeepers. I mean, what are the odds of a goalkeeper getting injured or booked in a game? So,
well, keep in mind that Matt Turner, your 1B person, isn't there.
Okay, so you could leave Stefan out too. But the guys you said, that would be the one that I would least.
No, okay. So you're putting it all on Panama. Are you throwing away the Mexico game? Because, I mean, if we are to believe what we have been told over the last couple of years, this is a generation unlike any generation that we have seen, not just in terms of the level of talent, but the sheer numbers and depth of talent that this U.S. team has. And so if any moment and any team for the U.S. would be next guy up, it would be here. Who are those players then that you're looking at as have to play there in your starting 11 against Panama?
That's part of my calculation. I think the U.S. does have really good depth right now where they could, even taking my approach, they could still put out a pretty solid lineup against Mexico, which against this Mexico team might be able to go there and get a point. If it's guys like Christian Roldan, and they've been in good form anyway, Paul Arriola, guys that are going to run that Mexico team into the ground.
But you can see that Greg Berhalter will not, like, if he were to listen to you, and he may very well do this, if he were to do what you suggest, he is not putting out his strongest team against Mexico in Mexico
Correct.
City.
I would not. I would not put the guys like somebody like Tyler Adams and risk him getting a yellow, or somebody like Pulisic, who we know his injury history, playing a game at a Azteca and then having to turn around 3 days later, play the game at home. I think that would be dicey. So I would not do that.
Any surprises on the roster? We know obviously that Weston McKennie is hurt and he's not going to be there. That's the bad news. The good news is Gio Reyna is going to be there. He played 90 minutes over the weekend. Knock on wood. He doesn't get hurt between getting to the airport and the flight over. Those are good things. Anything stand out to you?
Well, let's talk about two omissions that have gotten a lot of attention.
Okay.
John Brooks, we know he had a dip in form for both club and country, fell out of favor with Greg Berhalter, but he's now played pretty well for Wolfsburg for a while here, and so some people wanted him back in the mix. Are you surprised by his continued absence?
Something's going on, obviously, right? And even the way that he worded some of his response, and now this is the second time that he felt that he had to come out kind of publicly and talk about it. And even Greg Berhalter in his press conference after the roster release you could see he was getting a little irritated about having to talk so much about a player that is not there. I mean, that shows the value that a lot of people put in John Brooks. I'm not losing sleep that John Brooks isn't part of this team, but I know that there are people that look at it and will point to that as a reason why they don't think that he is qualified to be the head coach. But ultimately, we don't know, other than, I'll say form. He's not doing this or he's not doing that. But it's there's very few details as to what is going on. And there might be stuff going on behind the scenes that we don't know about.
The other one would be Josh Sargent, who Greg Berhalter spoke about how it's a tricky dilemma for him because he's playing as a winger for his club team, but very talented player, pretty good form. And some people have turned the Norwich thing around into a positive. Well, he's versatile now. He can play in multiple positions. But
who's he going to start over out wide? Christian Pulisic? No. Weah has been one of our most consistent and best performing wingers out there, right? So I get it. I understand. But if we're now completely framing Josh Sargent in a different position, and I know if he was doing this and playing in Turkey or something like that, nobody would care or anything. But the fact that he's doing it in the EPL, that means something. But it just might be that Josh Sargent, if he is a new wide midfielder or something like that, that's not going to happen this cycle. And that's okay. That's not a bad thing. I don't think that our future as a U.S. men's national team, or our short-term future, rests on the redhead that's playing over in Norwich.
As to the eternal center forward debate, since Josh Sargent is not in that mix anymore. So what do you think? We've got Pepe, we've got Pefok, we've got Jesus Ferreira coming off a hat trick in MLS.
Who played very well against Mexico last time around.
Yep.
And had a hell of a weekend.
So whatever game that Greg Berhalter decides to put out his quote unquote strongest lineup, who's the starting center forward that day?
I think probably Greg starts, that false nine-ish Jesus Ferreira in Mexico City, because I think that while we want to maybe, pound our chest and say we're going to take it to Mexico, the reality is that we're going to have very little of the ball. We are going to be defending a lot and then looking for some counter and some joy on the other side. And it's going to be difficult. And, we've gone to this well now 3 times over the last year, and we have found it full. At what point do we go and it is empty? I mean, if Greg Berhalter was able to mastermind 4 wins against Mexico within a year, 2 winning titles in adverse conditions in the Gold Cup and the Nations League, and then in qualifying, and then going away, let's build a statue for him. I mean, so I think it's
Ferrer against Mexico, and then Pepe or Pefok,
because probably Pefok. I know I say that form is fallacy, but even if form wasn't fallacy, I might even say Pefok's better than Pepe. Just even when they're both playing, even if you took Pepe at his best a couple months ago when he was, starring for FC Dallas. But I think it's 6-1 half the other.
And then that McKinney spot in the midfield, I thought Luca De La Torre was one of the standouts of that win against Honduras. So is he the logical guy there? To go back to Stu Holden, like I said, he did his projected lineups for Mexico and Panama this weekend, and he had Gio Reyna starting in one of those 3 midfield spots against Panama.
Against Panama, though he's not playing against Mexico.
That was a late change, by the way. Stu had De La Torre and then asked us to change at the last minute. Stu is very difficult when we do these types of segments.
So you're not starting Tyler Adams, right? So you have to find someone to replace Tyler Adams against Mexico, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So, like I said, there's a part of me, and I know it's such a risky, romantic part of me that just says no, screw it. We're not thinking about that Panama game. We're going to play the best possible 11 that we can and let the chips fall where they may. And I would respect that. And I know at a time where people love to crush Greg Berhalter for this or that, and no matter what he knows, he's going to get criticism. But Greg Berhalter, maybe more so than any U.S. men's national team in history, has been detail oriented. Maybe to a fault. I mean, we played, you can say, playing the game in Minnesota or whatever, but he has a lot of time, as any national team coach has, but he thinks about these things. And one of the knocks on Greg at times is that he overthinks things. And could that come into play here? And, so that wouldn't be overthinking things, just saying, I'm going to play the best 11 that I possibly have against Mexico in the Azteca, because I'm never going to get a better chance to get points off of Mexico in qualifying than this game.
What about Zach Steffen? He's also missed a lot of time with injury, hasn't played all that much. Some people thought Ethan Horvath might go into this window as the number 1 goalkeeper, but it's Steffen. What's your level of trust with him going into these games?
Zach Steffen? I don't trust him as much as I feel like I should, right? If that makes sense. He, and part of it is, we saw Horvath come on and, kind of make a scene last summer, and he's gone on and he's had some really good games. He's playing well. He's got confidence, and then you got, I'm not calling poor Sean Johnson, but just kind of waiting in the wings. I don't see the clear differentiation between Zach Steffen and at number 1 and then number 2, Sean Johnson or Ethan Horvath, whether it is. But I do think that Greg Berhalter does, because anytime that I have talked about goalkeepers in any capacity with Greg Berhalter, inevitably he has mentioned Zach Steffen. And I think he just has a thing for him, which is fine. All coaches do, that he believes ultimately when everybody is healthy, that is his starting goalkeeper, because that gives him the best chance of not just success, but success in the way that he wants to play and wants this team to play.
The fullback spots, no Serginho Dest.
Right.
He called up Bello and not Scally. Scally being another one of those names that
Right.
people complain about on Twitter. Who knows if that interview where he talked about the lack of communication with Berhalter might have hurt his chances. But so you've got on one side DeAndre Yedlin, Reggie Cannon, and the other Anthony Robinson, George Bello. What's the number one pairing that you would trust the most from the guys that are in this squad?
In the middle, Zimmerman and Robinson.
No, fullbacks.
I would probably say, yeah, I mean, I think it's Anthony Robinson now, although I have my qualms about him. I've made them very clear. And then Yedlin, probably. Yeah, I don't know. What do you know? Reggie Cannon?
No, probably Yedlin.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. It doesn't fill you with anticipation and excitement and confidence, but that's what it is. And there's something about this group in that, and I've talked about this before. They do have a different thing going. There is an Americanness to the and spirit, to throw out words that really don't mean anything, but you know what I mean, that I think drives them along. And they're going to need it absolutely in this last window. But here's what's going to happen. They're going to qualify or they're not going to qualify. If they don't qualify, everybody's going to come down on Greg and say, you should have done this, you should have done that. And that's fair. That's fine. But it's going to, as I said, justify all of these notions that people have of what Greg Berhalter is and the nepotism thing and the out of his depth and the youth and the overthinking and all that kind of stuff. And if they do qualify, I also don't think that's going to change anybody's mind either. And you say, well, you should. You're the U.S. and you've been given a Ferrari here in terms of the depth. It's not that that it's a no-win situation for him, but the jury will be out, I think, for those of us that I think can step back and look at it objectively. I think the jury, rightfully so, is out ultimately until he gets this job done and checks this box, because this was not in totality why he was hired, but this was the first thing that needed to be put back in place. And if he isn't able to do that, it doesn't matter all of the youth that he has played, all of the evolution and all of the progress and the development that he has been a part of. Doesn't matter beating Mexico or all those other things. It's a failure. What else, Mossy?
And we're focusing more on the first two games here. Thursday, Mexico at Azteca, and then Sunday, Panama and Orlando live on FS1. We'll see where we are on Monday. We'll do another podcast before the Costa Rica game. And, so we don't have to spend too much time on that game because we have a whole other podcast.
I don't even want to think about Costa Rica. I want this thing done. I want a big old party on Sunday night in the great city of Orlando, and I want to celebrate getting back to where we belong, which is a World Cup. Celebrate it not just from a Fox perspective, because it's important, but from an American perspective and a soccer perspective, because it's been too long.
Is Luis Aguilar rooting for Mexico or the U.S. on Thursday? Oh, he does not want to answer that question.
Doesn't want.
Oh, he wants us to promote
He wants us to promote O'Brien's. Okay, so here's the deal. We are broadcasting the game, as I said, in Orlando, Fox, and when I say we are not broadcasting the Thursday game, which is the Mexico game, but we'll all be watching it. And we said, well, why don't we get together and we have a little party? And so we invited all of our friends, the usuals, myself, David Mossy, my good friend Stu Holden, and then a bunch of other guests are going to join us on Thursday for the U.S.-Mexico game. It's going to be in Santa Monica at O'Brien's Bar. Now, I know a lot of you are listening here and you're thousands of miles away or you're across the ocean or whatever, and you're not going to be able to get there. But just know that it will be happening. We will get all the links and stuff like that so that you're able to see and hear what all that is going on. O'Brien's Bar in Santa Monica, California at 7 p.m. Pacific time on Thursday, March 24th. As I said, myself and Mossy and Stu Holden and a bunch of other guests are going to be basically just talking and reacting to this incredible night of USA-Mexico. And I will submit to you again, I think that it is the greatest international matchup in the game of soccer. And I will die on that hill, given all of our history, given all of our connections that go to culture and language and politics and geography and all the different things. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. It is always something that that provides entertainment and in real time writes history. So Santa Monica, O'Brien's Bar, 7 p.m. on Thursday. You can catch us all out there doing a digital broadcast, if you will. We're looking forward to doing that. And who knows, maybe we'll have a wonderful thing to celebrate because there's all sorts of permutations. I'm sure, Mossy, you're working on all the different things that could possibly happen out there. And we could be helped and or hurt by other teams and other games that are going on the same night.
Well, just to get the Thursday one out there, win over Mexico, Panama lost to Honduras, Costa Rica draw or loss versus Canada. The U.S. is in the World Cup on Thursday.
Wow.
Can I go through some of the other regions, World Cup qualifying?
Yeah, go ahead.
So in Europe, as you know, we have 10 already in, and then these 12 teams that have been divided into these 4-team brackets.
Mm-hmm.
The semifinals will be on Thursday. The final for each bracket will be on Tuesday. The situation in Ukraine has affected things. Poland was supposed to play Russia in a semifinal, but Russia had been banned from the World Cup, so Poland gets a bye into the final. So on Tuesday, they will face either Sweden or the Czech Republic for a berth in the World Cup. And then Ukraine got their semifinal against Scotland postponed until June. So the only game taking place in that bracket in this window is going to be the other semifinal between Wales and Austria. And then come June, Ukraine will face Scotland, and the winner of that will face the winner of Wales, Austria. But the bracket that everybody has their eye on. So Thursday, Portugal hosts Turkey. Italy hosts North Macedonia. If the two big boys take care of business, the next Tuesday we will have Ronaldo and Portugal hosting Italy for a spot in the World Cup. You're salivating already.
Oh my goodness! Who do you want? Just if you have to pick one.
This would be an unpopular answer at Fox, because of how star-driven we are. Mm-hmm. But I'd like to see Italy back in the World Cup.
Is it that unpopular though? Because look, I know stars sell, and we have the data to prove it. But given the amount of Italian fans that exist in the United States, and the incredible Italian American community that we have, and just the history, there's still a lot of people that watch soccer and watch the Italian national team out there. Maybe not. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what the
interesting
data
dynamic.
would be.
Italy is the much greater soccer nation with the much greater pedigree, and I think objectively are the better team. They just won the Euros, and yet because of the presence of Ronaldo and João Felix, Bruno Fernandes, Bernardo Silva, Diogo Jota, Ruben Diaz, the list. I've gone through it many times. It does feel like the tournament would lose more star power, individual star power, with Portugal not making it. So,
if and when these teams make it, I know you wanted to mention the draw coming up, right?
Well, let me do all the regions first.
Okay.
So then in CONMEBOL, we have Brazil and Argentina already in, and 5 teams fighting for 2.5 spots, which is Ecuador, Uruguay, Peru, Chile, and Colombia. And in that order that I just gave is where they are in the standings. So we have the last 2 match days over the next few days, and we'll see who makes it out of that. Then in Africa, we have those 5 two-legged ties that will determine their 5 berths. Some great matchups: Egypt, Senegal, Ghana, Nigeria, Cameroon, Algeria, Mali, Tunisia, and DR Congo against Morocco. So first legs are Friday, second legs Tuesday. So we'll see if Mo Salah gets over the line.
By the way, hold on. You're incredible.
Sadio Mane.
I mean, I know you're listening to my voice here and you can't see it, but there's no notes in front of him or anything like that. I know you're accessing some ridiculous recess in your brain there to be able to come up with this, but it's just amazing. I love you.
Then in Asia, it's 2 groups of 6. The top 2 in each group qualify automatically. We already know in one group it's Iran and South Korea have already qualified. And so we'll know in this window who the other 2 automatic qualifiers are. It'll be between Saudi Arabia, Japan, and Australia. 2 out of those 3 will make it. And then Asia will also eventually spit out a 5th team that will play in the Intercontinental Playoff against the 5th place finisher in CONMEBOL. And then there's also Oceania's qualifying tournament going on right now, which the winner of that, presumably it'll be New Zealand, with all due respect to the likes of Fiji and Tahiti.
Hater.
It'll be the winner of that goes to the Intercontinental Playoff to face the 4th place finisher in CONCACAF. So U.S. fans, keep half an eye on that, because if things go poorly over the next 3 games, that might be your.
I mean, I'll take getting there any way we get there, but just please don't have us get that 4th place.
So that's the situation.
And that's a one-off
qualifying.
game in Qatar.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. All right. Speaking of Qatar,
so we do have the World Cup draw coming up. That is April 1st, live on FS1. You and I will be in LA. Stu Holden is going to be in Doha for it.
Yep, we're going to send Stu over there again, and he's going to provide, obviously, the interviews that are going on. Hopefully, it's a celebration for the U.S. and everybody else is in there, and so he'll be our man on the ground over there, letting us know what's going on. And a FIFA production is always very, very interesting. So Stu will fit right in.
At Fox, we always have these fun debates about which stars we should highlight going into major tournaments, World Cups, etc. Our graphics person, Ashley Barmacy, emailed me a few days ago and said, "Hey, I'm putting together a promo for the World Cup draw. I have space for 4 players. Who should I pick?" Oof. And so that was my first. And bear in mind, it has to be players whose teams have already qualified, because you're not going to put somebody in there and then have them not qualified. Then you have to change the promo.
Neymar, Messi.
Also, players from 4 different teams. Just from a visual standpoint, the graphic pops more if there's 4 different jerseys. So I wouldn't put like Mbappe and Benzema. It would be 4 players from 4 different teams. Yeah. And also, I'm taking into account star power, notoriety. This is not some sort of hipster like you would pick Neymar before N'Golo Kante, regardless of who you think the quote unquote better player is. We're trying to build up stars here. So
hipster doesn't work on a promo.
The 4 I went with are Messi, Neymar, Mbappe, and Harry Kane.
Ooh, okay. I'll give you that. Okay.
So you can send your angry tweets to me.
Oh my goodness. All right, should we do a little MLS roundup too?
Absolutely,
because there was craziness again. This league is always crazy.
Any weekend where Miguel Angel Ramirez outcoaches Bruce Arena, I think we got to do a little MLS roundup.
There we go.
Congratulations to Charlotte FC. Huh?
Charlotte FC. Well, we can start there. I mean, Charlotte FC getting their first win in history. 3-1 win over last year's Supporters Shield winners, as you mentioned, coached by the great Bruce Arena. Miguel Angel Ramirez, did you see what he's wearing, by the way?
The short sleeves?
It was a short sleeve turtleneck. It was an incredible, bold attire decision. And that they won, made it well. Otherwise, I think it probably would have come in for more ridicule had they lost. But they didn't. They won. And if you win, you can win anything. They did a really interesting thing over there from a television perspective, because keep in mind, this was the stadium where we did the 75,000 people there. And when that stadium is full, that's great. But, now it's downsized and there's still 29,000 people or whatever in there. But the upper bowl is open, and yet there was virtual signage going around, and I think they did a really good job from a television perspective of making it look good, making it sound big, and the aesthetics of that, and all of that matters. And the home team got the win, and the fans there for the first time in history got to go home from that experience on a high note with the win. So congratulations to them. I mean, it's a strange year so far, Mossy, because you have, let's see, in the East, you have NYCFC, obviously MLS Cup champions, New England, that are out of the playoff position right now. You got Cincinnati that's won 2 games in a row. Let's see, what else you got? You have Portland and Seattle on the other side, and Nashville for that matter, and Kansas City that are all out of the playoff spots. So all sorts of craziness going on.
Our game, I thought, was terrific on Sunday. We had Austin FC Seattle. It finished 1-1. And I'm very impressed with Austin. I know those first 2 games were against Cincinnati and Inter Miami, but they then played Portland. They did lose 1-0, and then Seattle draw 1-1. But I think even in those games, they showed that they're a very good team and they're going to be a factor.
And that they've improved.
I like what Josh Wolf is doing there. Very impressive. Driussi, Cecilio Dominguez, Fagundes coming off the bench, scored this weekend. So they've got some firepower. I like that team a lot.
We talked to Josh Wolf before the game. It was really interesting to hear him bristle at the insinuation that he had heard in the media from some that had said, well, this is just basically the same start that you had last year, and that this team hasn't really changed that much. And he called it lazy journalism, and he didn't like that narrative. Now, I would take a little issue, because it's not really a narrative if you're telling people that you had the same record, which they did have the same record. If in that narrative you are saying that they have not changed, then I guess that might be lazy. But it's up to Josh Wolf and company to prove that they have improved, and therefore that they are a different team and that they have changed. And a result, like you said, against Seattle and coming back against Seattle, that's important. And keep in mind, they had scored 10 goals in their first couple of games, and they went to Portland and lost. So while I don't think that this is yet an elite MLS team, this is certainly a team that has taken a dramatic step forward and is going to be competitive and has improved. And so I think that whatever narrative it is out there that Josh Wolf is angry about is going to dissipate very, very quickly if they continue to have performances like that. Who else you want to talk about?
You mentioned NYCFC. Philadelphia beat them 2-0. Philadelphia at the top of the
They're
Eastern
flying
Conference.
Philly.
Boy, Jim Curtin doing it again. I mean, what a coach.
I mean, it's all in one place though. So, well, we don't know. I mean, I think he potentially has the tools to be a good coach, and he's been a great coach when it comes to Philadelphia in particular. I'd love to see what he looks like someplace else.
You've gotten in trouble with Brian Schmetzer's mother for this narrative that if you only do it in one place, the jury's still out. So be careful.
Well, sometimes all you have to do is do it in one place. And, maybe that's all he's going to do. But, ultimately, he can only coach the team that he is the coach of. And the only team that he's been the coach of is Philadelphia. Congratulations to Philadelphia sitting there at 10 points. Jim Curtin, to your point, I think is a good coach. I think he's possibly a great coach, and certainly he is doing great things when it comes to Philadelphia, especially with all of the changes and the limitations that they have relative to other teams in terms of the spending, the development that they have, the willingness to play young players, but more importantly, the points that they get and the games that they win. And, I know that NYCFC has been on a whirlwind and fighting on multiple fronts, but that's still no excuse. They went into Yankee Stadium, which is not an easy place to play, and they came out with a win against the defending MLS champs.
LAFC at the top of the West. So far, so good for Cherundolo, huh? 3-1 win over Vancouver. Carlos Vela with another goal. He's looking healthy, so...
Play Carlos Vela. I mean, that's not fair to Steve Cherundolo because he's not just throwing out the ball or anything like that, but stars matter, and doesn't matter if you're just starting out your career like a Steve Cherundolo or you're, a legend like a Bob Bradley. You ask them, and they will say, look, I'm only as good as the talent that I have. Yeah, I'm going to coach them up a little bit, but especially in MLS, those stars have to show up. And you look like down in Miami with Mr. Neville down there complaining about the fact that his stars aren't showing up, and the way that he looks at other teams and says, gosh, I wish our stars were able to produce in the way that stars are producing around. And that's, by the way, that's no different than anywhere in the world. If Mbappe is on the field, you need him to be a star. You need him to carry the team. You need him to score goals and do the things that he's paid ridiculous amount of money for. And it doesn't change when it comes to an MLS team either.
How much longer is this Phil Neville thing going to last?
Look, he is, if you ever spend any time with him, wonderful man, all right? But that has nothing to do with ultimately the assessment because he is being paid to have this team win. And yeah, it's difficult because of the restrictions and the punishment for cheating that were applied to this team, but that's the gig, and you got to figure it out. And it's not as if he doesn't have talent there. The Higuain thing is problematic to say the least. He still doesn't look like this is something that he is enjoying, and to Neville's point, he's not making an impact. And he scored a penalty and everything like that, but it's not what it needs to be yet. And yeah, you can't fire all the players, and so at some point, if he wasn't who he is and didn't have the relationship with David Beckham and that history, would he still be there right now? Probably not. But we all get different advantages. I don't begrudge him that. It's part of the conversation, and I think it's fair to bring that up because Miami and the fans of Miami, they have been nothing but supportive, and they have come out and they have bought the merchandise and they have bought into this team, and they haven't been given anything in return. And until they find somebody that is able to lead, there's going to be questions, and I think fairly so. And so I don't know. I mean, this can't go on, and this wouldn't have gone on anyplace else in the world, pretty much. But that it's going on right now, it only highlights, the problem.
We mentioned Jesus Ferreira scoring a hat trick from a U.S. Perspective, but really impressive result for Dallas. They beat Portland 4-1. Arriola also scored. What did you make of that result?
Dallas is interesting this year because after, let's be honest, a decade of not irrelevance in the likes of Houston, let's say, but irrelevance in terms of their first team being competitive in Major League Soccer. And decade's too long, but certainly of late. And they have just completely leaned into development. And that's all fine and well. And yet, obviously coming off of the Pepe sale and everything, they said, we're gonna really concentrate on giving our customer, our fans, something to be proud of on the field and something exciting on the field. And, it's not just imported talent, although we saw their major signing, score a goal, and that's all fine and well. But it's also someone like Jesus Ferreira, who they paid a lot of money as a young American talent, and that hasn't happened in the past. And he's providing dividends. So Dallas is interesting again. Interesting in terms of their first team. I think they've always been interesting in terms of what they are doing from a development standpoint. But this is now worth the money that you are because you're not paying money for development. You're paying money for a competitive team, and they haven't been given that for a long time now, and now at least they are.
Yeah, I mean, the new signing so far, Alan Velasco got an assist in this game. He scored a great goal the week before against Nashville. Thiago Almada scored for Atlanta in that crazy game with Montreal, 3-3. Facundo Torres got the winner for Orlando against the Galaxy. Shaqiri got his first goal from the penalty spot and then played a part in the two others as Chicago beat Sporting KC. So, the big signings have all at least shown flashes here that they're going to be.
Yeah, everyone's going to whine if I don't mention them. So, okay, Chicago, welcome. Okay, you're finally back, and you want me to pay attention after being out in the wilderness for how many years? So, congratulations. And did you see the tweet about the Chicago Fire that Chicago Fire put out about the Chicago Fire television series?
Yeah, and it resonated with me because I deal with that every single week when I Google Chicago Fire to look something up. I get that stupid TV show as the first thing that pops up.
See, it sounds like something just funny and stupid and throwaway, but it is an actual liability and a barrier out there. I mean, when you put it into a search engine, it's not the soccer team that comes up. It's this show that's been on for however many years. And I have no sympathy, though, for the Chicago Fire wanting people to recognize them now as something different and apart from the show. You just rebranded twice in what, a year? In 2 years? You had the opportunity to change your name. You didn't want to change it, fine. But you're going to deal with the same problem regardless of what you look like, what the aesthetic is. You're still going to deal with the problem of David Mosse typing in Chicago Fire and not having the soccer team come up. But at least on the field right now, you're making waves. Congratulations to Ezra Hendrickson. Early days, and he would be the first to tell you that. But so far, so good. One of the undefeated teams here in the league, as is our friends from Columbus. Before you start screaming and yelling at me, Columbus also sitting in second place with 8 points. So that's good. You mentioned LAFC, Salt Lake, RSL under now permanent manager Pablo Mastriani, sitting at 10 points and tied with LAFC up there at the top of the Western Conference. And
speaking of RSL,
yep.
We interviewed David Ochoa, taped an interview with him that's going to go up at some point this week.
You should see that in your feed later on this week. The great David Ochoa, the goalkeeper, interesting personality on the field and off the field, and obviously he made that choice. And we talked to him about that difficult choice of who to represent because he was a dual national, and while he grew up representing the U.S. at the youth level, ultimately made his one-time switch and now wants to represent Mexico, and we'll see if he gets that opportunity going forward. Still, Vancouver not good. San Jose still not good. We mentioned Miami, still not good. Montreal still not good. Toronto, better, but it's still going to be a work in progress. And Toronto, I think we have much higher expectations for, given what they have done over the last decade. But this league is off to the races with all sorts of interesting stuff happening. Everybody will get a nice little break. I will mention this before we go. In the Nashville game, RSL beat Nashville. My friend and fellow redhead Dax McCarty got a red card, and he was a bad boy, and he knows it. And he actually, after the game, put out this video on social media apologizing for his behavior. And I get it. I get what he's trying to do. And I guess it's it's a harmless type of thing to do. I mean, it looks kind of like a hostage video, but but he's very articulate and clear as to he messed up, he took responsibility, he apologized, and recognized that was not something that he was proud of, and was was out of line. But in this day and age, we apologizing for everything. You got a red card. You're a soccer player. It happens. All right. Go on. You don't need to apologize. All right. If you felt that you needed to do it, fine. Go ahead. But to kind of make it into this production, and again, no good deed goes. Anyway, so you should check it out. And then there's this weird part where his wife came and then gave context about they're having some problems. And so I hope everything's going all right at their house. They were having some problems, and therefore that's why he was on edge and stuff like that. They were having some guy that was walking around their house, and they had to get security and stuff. You can go and check it out. It's a wild story. And if the McCartys are listening right now, I hope you've gotten that sorted out off the field when it comes to the problems that you are having. But as far as the apology from mutant gene, it sometimes it makes you do crazy things, and you will be forgiven. This is not something that we associate necessarily with Dax McCarty, and like to think that it was just an anomaly and little aberration there. All right, Mossy, anything else?
That is it.
All right, we're going to take another quick break. Well, not another quick break, our first quick break here. And when we come back, we'll take a look around Europe. Don't go anywhere. Okay, we're back. Mossy, let's take a trip around Europe, because there was all sorts of things that happened even as we go into this window, so we want to make sure we hit on them.
You said U.S.-Mexico is the greatest international rivalry.
Mm-hmm.
For my money, this past weekend, we had the two greatest club rivalries in the world. I'm going to jam this in here at the top because I have no other place to put it. River played Boca. Boca won 1-0 at the Monumental. Sebastian Villa with the only goal. Great result for them.
Mm-hmm.
And then, meanwhile, in Spain, Barcelona absolutely walloped Real Madrid 4-0 at the Bernabeu. Listen, we know that great players don't always become great coaches. It's hit or miss. Even with a guy like Xavi, who we all had a good feeling about because he was such a cerebral player, a coach on the field, etc., you still weren't sure until he actually got in there. But it does appear that Barcelona have hit the jackpot again, the same way they did with Pep in 2008. Xavi has done an absolutely phenomenal job reviving this club, aided, it must be said, by some very good January signings. But I like the way this team's been playing for 2 months now, going all the way back to that Super Cup defeat to Real Madrid. I came on this podcast right after, said I love their performance. I thought it was indicative of them turning a corner. They've been getting better and better ever since. They've had some nice results against the likes of Atletico Madrid, Valencia, Napoli. But this was the confirmation, the exclamation point. Barcelona are back.
Really? Okay. Congratulations, Barcelona. And go back to Europa. And good luck there. Best player on the team didn't play for Real Madrid, right?
Karim Benzema.
Okay. Karim Benzema doesn't play. I want to go back to what you said about Clásico. Were you as excited about this as you have been in the past? Has some of the bloom come off?
No, I was not as excited. Yes, some of the bloom has come on.
Okay, because we were doing the show while the Clásico was happening, and Rob Stone actually said to me that it didn't resonate. And this goes back to our talk about stars, and it's not as if there aren't stars on the field, but when you're talking about a decade plus of when it was the biggest stars in the world, and arguably the biggest stars that our game has ever seen, facing up against each other, it took on monumental proportions.
Well, I'm sorry, Rob. It's not the bowling invitational, whatever, or WrestleMania, whatever it gets you going. But nevertheless, now going back to Xavi, I am all in on this guy. I love the job he's doing. The way he's integrated the January signings like Aubameyang and Ferran Torres, the way he's rehabilitated guys like Dembele and Frankie de Jong, the way he's rejuvenated veterans like Piqué and Busquets, and developed youngsters like Pedri and Gavi. And by the way, they're without Ansu Fati, who I think might be the most talented player on that team, and if he ever gets on the field, could be the face of this sort of post-Messi Barcelona era. But nevertheless, they're getting great results.
So why did it take them so long? Why didn't they do this earlier?
Well, right now, the narrative right now in Spain is, why didn't they do this a little bit sooner? Because, to your point, Xavi didn't get in there until they had only 2 games left in the Champions League group stage. They played a home game against Benfica, which was his second game in charge. He was still kind of getting his bearings. They drew 0-0 that day, and that effectively sealed their fate in the Champions League. And then in La Liga, since he took over, they have 37 points from 16 games. Real Madrid over the span have 39 points from 17 games. So Barcelona have actually collected points at a better clip than Real Madrid. So right now they're 12 points back with a game in hand. They win that, it would be 9. It's too much. They're not going to win La Liga. Real Madrid are going to win it. But still, I think it's trending towards them finishing second and coming out of the season actually with a lot of momentum, more than we thought they were going to have.
Look, that's a good thing. It's a good thing for soccer, and I'm happy that this is happening, and I hope what you're saying continues.
You think I'm overselling it?
No. I mean, I think I think you're right to be excited about what you have, and you're extrapolating it out. And we know that doesn't always work. But my question is this, and maybe you have a better idea about this, but weren't we told time and time again about how much money and how much debt that this team was in, and that they couldn't buy anybody, and there was the fiscal restraints and problems and poor management, all that kind of stuff? I don't get it. Did that just all go away?
I agree with you. Say what you want about American sports, but there's a lot more transparency here. When you have a salary cap, you know how much money each team has spent, how much cap room they have. You understand why they could afford this player and not that player. Well, European football, it's just the wild, wild west when it comes to finances. And you're right. Going into the season, it was like this club is about to fold. They can't register new players. And all of a sudden, I know a lot of them are free transfers, but they still make decent amount of money in wages. They're able to bring in all these players in January. They signed Ferran Torres for 55 million euros, and they've thrown their hat into the Erling Haaland sweepstakes. That would be 75 million euros plus a mammoth contract. They're being linked with other guys too. I don't get it. I don't get how they're doing it,
all right,
but somehow they're making it work.
I mean, I don't necessarily care, because if it's a better Barcelona team, I think the world is better with a better Barcelona team. And if Xavi is the architect, then however he's getting his tools and his the materials to do it, bring it on. I'm good with that. All right. Anything else La Liga wise?
So it makes for a natural segue to England, because the 2010-11 campaign, many people consider the pinnacle of the Real Madrid-Barcelona rivalry, because you had Mourinho on one side, Pep on the other. They were competing on several different fronts. They played in the Copa del Rey final and the Champions League semis, battling in La Liga, and it meant that they squared off 4 times in a short span, and all the matches were very tense. And there's something similar, not to the same degree, sort of brewing in England with Manchester City and Liverpool. The Premier League title race is red hot. Last week, City dropped points away to Crystal Palace. Liverpool capitalized, had a great win away to an Arsenal team, which is flying and which is probably going to finish 4th. And so for Liverpool to go there and beat them at the Emirates was very impressive. And so the gap is now 1 with 9 games to play for each. And in the midst of that, they both took care of business in the FA Cup quarterfinals this weekend, and the draw pitted them against each other in the semis. So now we're going to have April 10th at the Etihad, City-Liverpool in the Premier League, a match that everybody's saying is a title decider. And then 6 days later, they're going to meet at Wembley in an FA Cup semifinal. Keep in mind, they could also meet in the Champions League final down the road. Who knows? So it's the spotlight very much on those two teams.
Let me get this straight. It's good when the elite teams face each other on multiple occasions. The more often the elite teams come up against each other, the more exciting it is for you, and the more attention, and therefore, because of the quality on the field, the more people are going to watch. That's a good thing?
Absolutely.
But the Super League is not a good thing.
Terrible idea.
Got it. Okay, just checking. Go ahead.
So that's the situation at the top of the table. I can't wait to see how this is going to unfold the next few weeks. And I got to say, it's all trending Liverpool's way. We've spent all these
even
years,
the league.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it's only 1 point
Okay,
gap.
but
And we've spent all these years sort of gushing about City's squad. It's unbelievable, the players that Pep can bring off the bench. Right now, man for man, Liverpool have a better squad than City. Their firepower is unbelievable.
Poor little Liverpool. What do you mean we don't gush about Liverpool? Is anybody?
No, but the narrative, the team that we talk about having this ridiculous squad, and oh my God, look at the players sitting on the bench and the different options that Pep has. Right now, that's Liverpool. I mean, you look at up front, he's got 5 players he could rotate between Mane, Salah, Firmino, Jota, and Luis Diaz. There's like no drop-off whatsoever.
Well, then he's just doing what's expected of him.
I mean, that squad is, and the options in the midfield he has, that squad is ridiculous. So, I mean, it's hard to, City have had this a couple of times recently where they had a shot at a quadruple,
right,
where you win League Cup, FA Cup, Premier League, and Champions League. And Pep would always be the one to say, no, It's too tough to win all those competitions. And frankly, some of the lineup decisions he made in the Champions League, it was almost like he was trying to sabotage their efforts for a quadruple. But now it's Liverpool who have won the League Cup and have a shot at the 3 others. So we'll see if perhaps they can do it. Incidentally, the other FA Cup semifinal, Chelsea Crystal Palace, assuming Chelsea does what they're supposed to do there, you'd have a great final, either Chelsea City in a rematch of the Champions League final from last season, or Chelsea Liverpool in a rematch of the crazy League Cup final we just had that came down to penalties, Kepa skying it. So
you don't want to see Crystal Palace get to the final?
No, absolutely not. So that's a situation at the top, FA Cup. Should we discuss our American friend who had an incredible come from behind victory against Wolves? Leeds were 2-0 down in the second half. They end up winning 3-2. And after the game, Jesse Marsch reveled in that victory. He was asked in the post-game press conference about how he's been accepted by the players. And he said, well, they don't make fun of my accent, unlike you guys, and then had this very evil laugh. It was a great moment. Everybody in
the laugh, it did linger. There was a there was a lingering to the laugh. Okay, and look, I'm so happy for Jesse to be in this moment. How long it lasts? Who knows? And strange things happen. But this incredible fantasy type of existence, it must be wonderful. And so I don't blame him for picking and choosing, and he's a smart guy. He understood beforehand what was going to happen, but he also, I think, is using the leverage that he has and the moment and the power he has to remind people that ultimately he's a soccer coach, okay? And just because he calls it soccer doesn't make him any less or more of a coach. Ultimately, he's going to get judged on the results, and these are huge results over the last couple of weeks. And the fashion in which they came about make it that much more exciting and romantic and memorable. And I think very, very quickly, what's interesting to me is to hear him talk about the transition from Bielsa. And, he's very respectful, and there's a reverence to Bielsa as he should, but he's also trying to balance by saying, I'm asking them to do some different things. And they are still kind of stuck with one foot in the past. And even within that transition, in that moment when they need to get results, they are still finding a way to get results. And there is a spirit, the ability to come back, the ability to find ways out of games that at times they've looked like they've been completely out. He's got to like this. This is far from a finished product, but at least right now you're seeing a team that is going to fight. And they've clawed their way over the last couple of weeks into a very, very good position. And the chances for him have increased dramatically that he is going to keep this team up, that he is going to survive, and then when an off season be given the opportunity to take a breath and really kind of come back. But there's still games to go, and crazy stuff can certainly happen, as he has shown with his team over the last couple of weeks.
In Italy, at the top, Milan, Napoli, and Juventus won this weekend. Inter, who at one point I thought was clearly the best team and they were going to win it, they're really fading in this title race. They drew Fiorentina 1-1. So right now it's Milan 66, Napoli 63, Inter 60, Juve 59. Inter have played one fewer game than the other 3 teams I mentioned. First game coming out of the international break, Juve hosts Inter. So that's going to be a massive game in this whole deal. There was a big derby in Italy as well. Roma thumped Lazio 3-0. Tammy Abraham with 2 goals.
Tammy Abraham?
Yeah, he's having a terrific season. It was interesting in the lead up to this game. You might have played against this guy. You're familiar with a coach named Zdeněk Zeman?
Zeman, yeah.
That name rings a bell, right?
I famously said some bad words about him because they're the only Italian words that I knew at the time.
Yeah, so you don't even need to tell you who he is. He is this Bielsa-like figure from the Czech Republic, but he's coached in Italy forever. He coached Lazio and Roma. And, like Bielsa, he's this innovator, romantic, his teams play attractive football, eccentric figure, but doesn't win a whole lot, and yet is still very opinionated. And so he said in the lead up to this game that he's been disappointed with Roma this season, that Mourinho hasn't done that great of a job, that Maurizio Sarri's done a better job at Lazio. And Mourinho was asked about that in the pre-match press conference, and I knew this was coming. He said, you want a coach with 25 trophies to have to defend himself against the guy who's won 2 Serie B titles? Give me a break. He just swatted it away. And it made me think, what would Mourinho say if him and Bielsa ever got into a back and forth? They didn't overlap all that much in the Premier League, but I'd be curious to know what Mourinho thinks of Bielsa. I don't know for sure about that.
I wonder if there's not a begrudging respect, but I mean, they do, at least from the outside, seem like they not just view soccer, but view the world and life in completely diametrically opposed ways. But yeah, it would be interesting to get them on and see what they did have in common and what they could agree on and what they couldn't.
In Germany, you're going to laugh at me, but Dortmund had cut it down to 4. I was starting to get ideas.
I know you get ideas.
And then right on cue, Bayern 4-0 over Union Berlin, and Dortmund dropped points against Cologne, finished 1-1. So the
hope it'll kill you.
Back up to 6. So, but yeah, Gio Reyna, we talked about it in the U.S. segment. He's getting healthier and healthier. Had an assist in a midweek game against Mainz, and then started at the weekend against Cologne. So that's good. But it does appear like Bayern is going to win the Bundesliga again.
Careful. All right.
And finally, Ligue 1, and this will get us into talking Champions League. We know that for these super clubs, the most depressing match of the season is that first league game after getting knocked out of the Champions League.
Right.
And for PSG, that's even more pronounced because the league means nothing to them. It's all about the Champions League. And so I knew it was going to be a weird atmosphere, but I didn't expect it to be this weird. After they had that unbelievable elimination against Real Madrid, which we weren't able to talk about last week because we didn't have a podcast, but they had a home game against Bordeaux, and the fans booed Neymar and Messi every single time they touched the ball. Now, everybody lumped those two together. There's nothing wrong with booing Neymar. He's been booed there before. That's 5 years of frustration. He brings a lot of it on himself. But seeing a home crowd boo Messi was pretty surreal. And by the way, they won. Neymar scored. Messi played well. They beat Bordeaux despite that toxic atmosphere. But then they come back this weekend. Messi misses the game because of an illness. They get thumped by Monaco 3-0. It just looks like it's going to be an incredibly depressing end of the campaign here for PSG. We weren't able to get your thoughts on this last week, but seeing a home crowd boo Messi, I mean, how sort of mind-boggling is that?
I mean, he is a shadow of his former self. I mean, plenty of assists, and he's still one of the great players, and he still can do magical things. But I think I would think he expected much more from this, and that it hasn't come to fruition. Isn't that kind of what PSG does? I mean, let's be honest. But booing him, yeah. Was he okay?
It just speaks to the fact that he left a place where he had so much currency where even if he has a bad game, it's unthinkable that the fans would turn on him like that versus going to a new place where you're starting from scratch. He has no currency built up with those fans. So, I mean, I guess that's the explanation, but it's still...
But he's okay, right? He wasn't
he was ill
or anything, right?
Ill. He missed this weekend's game. Who knows if the illness was hurt feelings.
Okay. All right. Well, I think he's going to be all right. Yeah. Yeah.
So that segues into the Champions League where we had the quarterfinal draw, which PSG was not in. And the draw, by the way, also determined who would face who in the semis. And I would say we pretty much have one semifinal matchup set because Bayern and Liverpool effectively got byes in this round. Liverpool will take on Benfica. Bayern will face Villarreal. Benfica are not any good. That second leg against Ajax.
In your professional assessment, they are not any good.
That second leg against Ajax in the round of 16. Yeah. Ajax on balance of play should have won that game 3 or 4-0. They missed a million chances. Benfica scored. The only chance they got, it was total smash and grab. So they go through, but they're going to be no problem for Liverpool. I respect Villarreal more than Benfica. It was impressive the way they went to Italy and thumped Juventus 3-0 to advance. Europa League winners last season. But nevertheless, they're not going to beat Bayern in a 2-legged tie. So I think we are going to have Bayern.
So both of us are picking Liverpool and Bayern, right?
Bayern and Liverpool to meet in the semis, which would be great. The other side of the bracket is more interesting. You have Manchester City against Atletico Madrid. Atletico coming off eliminating Manchester United. Mm-hmm. Very satisfying. Shut down Ronaldo in both games. A lot of people feel like Atletico have kind of gotten their mojo back, rediscovered their identity. So I think they're going to be a tricky opponent for Pep and City. City obviously favorites, but it would not shock me if Atletico went through. What about you?
I'm still going to stay with Man City. I mean, when you say that they have found their mojo and that they have rediscovered their identity in like the traditional identity, of being boring and defending, right? I mean,
but with a touch of class from João Felix.
A touch of class, okay. All right, well, they're going to need more than a touch of class, I think, against Man City.
And then the closest thing to a 50-50 is Chelsea, Real Madrid. And I say that I think Chelsea is clearly the better team, but just the circumstances, the first leg is going to be in London, and you're hearing it might be in an empty stadium because of the Abramovich situation. I don't know. I have to see more details on that. And then the second leg is in Madrid, which, as PSG found out and many others have found out over the years, finishing off Real Madrid in Spain is much tougher than finishing them off in your home stadium. And so when you throw in sort of the...
Not for Xavi.
Well, yeah, that's true. So I think the circumstances around the tie level it out a little bit, but I do think Chelsea is the better team. They eliminated Real Madrid in the semifinals last season. Remember, Pulisic had a great tie. He scored in the first leg, had an assist to Mason Mount in the second leg, and he's coming off an excellent round of 16 against Lille.
He's
scored
playing.
In both legs.
Knock on wood, he stays healthy. He's playing. He's been the man.
That goal he scored in the second leg was pretty significant. They were about to go into halftime down 1-0, which would have made for a sticky second half against Lille, and he scores from a tight angle there. Beautiful finish. Man of the match in both legs, so he is flying right now. So Chelsea, Real Madrid. What do you think?
So hold on, back. Did you say Man City or Atletico when all is said and done?
City.
Okay, you got me too. City, and I am going to go with Real Madrid.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I am going to go with Chelsea. I actually think all this craziness around them has had kind of a galvanizing effect. So
they've come together and they're us against the world.
Yeah, I've said all season I think the Premier League is a cut above. Those three English teams to me are the three best teams in Europe, and so I'm going to ride with that. So I think when it's all said and done, the quarterfinals will be Chelsea versus City and Liverpool, Bayern Munich.
Bunch of elites just playing, right?
Yep.
That's interesting.
We have a Ask Alexi question about Messi and Ronaldo, so we'll delve into them in the Ask Alexi and the ramifications of them both getting knocked out in the round of 16.
Well done, my friend. Well done. All right, we'll take a quick break. As Moss, you mentioned, we'll be back with Ask Alexi. Don't go anywhere. All right, we're back. It's time for Ask Alexi. Use that hashtag Ask Alexi out there on all the different platforms that we have, and we pick a few each week, as we have done this week. I think we have 3 Twitter questions this week. We do also have the State of the Union podcast hotline, which is 657-549-2297, 657-549-2297, that you can leave a message there and with your question. But we got Twitter questions this week, right, Mossy?
Correct. First, at Cesarmania 1987. Do you think an MLS team will win the CONCACAF Champions League?
Yeah, so the CONCACAF Champions League. It was going so well, Mossy.
Well, it's a glass half full, glass half empty situation. It was looking incredibly promising entering last week, to the point where Bruce Arena in a Zoom call with us was musing about the possibility of all 4 semifinalists being MLS teams.
I thought it was going to be all 4.
And then Wednesday brought everybody back down to earth. Montreal lost a very winnable tie to Cruz Azul, and then we had the New England apocalypse against Pumas. And so for 24 hours there, all the defeatism came back. We were crazy to think this was the year. It's the same old story. But then Seattle went and took care of business against León. And so, okay, it's not as great as it could have been, but still, you've got 2 very good MLS teams in Seattle and NYCFC on one side of the draw. And so one of those is going to face a not that great Mexican team. I still maintain that neither Cruz Azul or Pumas is a juggernaut. So whichever way the matchup goes in the final here, I think it's a 50-50.
You're absolutely right in that we got greedy, okay? But I think it was understandably so, given the results. And the Montreal one, that can happen. We certainly have a history where we have thought we were through, and then the soccer gods have crapped upon us. I think you mentioned the NYCFC. While they went through, it was not convincing in that second game, and certainly you didn't look at NYCFC and said, "Wow, that's a great team." As a matter of fact, you said you got really, really lucky to get through. But you got through. And in normal circumstances, we would certainly take two teams through. But that there was even the possibility that all 4 teams there just showed how far we had come and how confident we were in those positions. How stupid of us to think that could happen. The biggest killer, though, is the New England one. And look, it's... our friend Hercules Gomez over there, I think right after the game, absolutely nailed it on the head when he said that this had nothing to do with all the excuses. There are legitimate excuses out there over the years, and the disparity in terms of what is spent and what isn't, and in essence, at times MLS teams playing with one foot behind their back. But this was 3-0, all right, going back down for, by the way, the Supporters' Shield winner and a very, very good team, and they blew it. And so Bruce has nobody but to blame but himself and his team. This was a complete and utter failure, not of MLS, but ultimately it's always going to be in the context of MLS. This was a failure of the New England Revolution, and they let one get away from them that who knows when they'll get another opportunity. And that what is so irritating and galling from those of us that want to see this happen so that frickin' box can be checked. It's one less team, and a good team, by the way, that had they gone through, given the talent that they have, you could have every reason to believe that they could have ultimately won it. So fine, we're going to do it the harder way, not necessarily the hard way, because like we said, still two very good teams in NYCFC and Seattle. Seattle, I think, benefited from that extra day, by the way, because they were able to see what happened to New England and learn that lesson very, very quickly. We even talked to Brian Schmetzer about the fact that it's difficult. Yes, everybody understands it's difficult, but when Seattle took the field, they were like, not on our watch. We're not going to let that happen.
It's been interesting. I'm on a text chain with Keith Costigan and Ian Joy. Already the back and forth going on about that Seattle NYCFC. You know, they worked together on Bundesliga and they had good chemistry on the air, but there's no love lost between those two. They don't like each other. So that is
a long line in a history of relationships that, when the red light is on, looks all hunky-dory, and then you get off and it's horrible.
I've even had a passing thought, and we'll see what Luis thinks of this, of before that semifinal, having both guys.
Oh, yeah. And letting them go at it. Oh my goodness. But this does guarantee us an MLS team in the final. And so that is always a good thing, because then, unless you're in the final, in my expert opinion, it's very difficult to win. So if I had to pick between the two, notwithstanding that horrible performance from NYCFC, I still think I'm more confident that Seattle finds a way in these types of tournaments than NYCFC. What do you think?
Yes, and okay. I have to think eventually they're going to get Rui Diaz back. We keep waiting for that.
Right? So. And Lodero, and, they have incredible players still waiting in the wings, and yet they're still able to figure out stuff. It's a credit to the organization and to Brian Schmetzer. All right, what else?
Next question.
So, yes, do you think the MLS team will win CONCACAF Champions League? Yes. After all is said and done, and after everything that we just said, I think they're winning it this year.
Next up, at Philonic. Hey, guys. Now that they're both out of the UCL, if Messi and Ronaldo were to go to the same team, which team would you think would be the best fit, and how do you think it would go? By the way, we had a question in last week's pod that, Luis went through the trouble putting together a rundown, and then we never did the pod. That was, do you think Messi and Ronaldo will ever win another Champions League title? Right. So there's been a lot of conversation in the air about this being sort of the end of an era, them both crashing out for the second straight season in the round of 16. The tone of this question seems to kind of fit that. So
I don't think that either of them will win another Champions League title. I think that they have become not detrimental is such a harsh word, and it's not like an albatross around the necks of their teams, but the players that they are at this moment, and it's hard for teams to play with them. And I'm not blaming them all, either of them individually or either of them that's why their teams have not been successful. And this is why this question is so difficult about where do you think that they would fit in. You would have to have a team that is so far and ahead above everybody else in terms of, and now we're talking about not just the other 10 players, the other 9 players, that those 9 players would have to be superhero-esque in order to compensate and accommodate for a team that had Ronaldo and Messi. And it's not that they can't have moments. I mean, even over the last couple of weeks, we've seen moments that they have where that moment of brilliance is there. But there's not enough of it. And the concessions that in the past teams were willing and, more importantly, able to make to accommodate these two geniuses, I just don't think at this point in 2022, there is the ability for teams out there to accommodate. I mean, they're already at kind of an all-star team as it is. If Messi went to Liverpool, you think that's going to work? That doesn't. Klopp would be like, he's a great player, but this is not how we play.
At one point this season, there was this thought that if, as expected, Mbappe were to leave PSG, that they would then turn around and sign Cristiano Ronaldo. But I think this elimination to Real Madrid seems to have been something of a tipping point for PSG, where even they realize that just signing these big name stars is not the way to go. I don't think there's any appetite for them to turn around and sign Cristiano Ronaldo this offseason. So yeah, I don't think there's any serious proper team that would pair those guys together at this point. I'll tell you, Messi has one more year left in his PSG contract. I think he's going to play that out. That would take him through the World Cup.
Right.
And then I'm not just saying this to get clicks. It would not surprise me if MLS summer of 23, he makes that move.
Summer of 23.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe for Messi and Ronaldo. What do you think?
Well, we don't want to go down a weird path here, but Ronaldo has reasons why he probably doesn't want to go to the United States.
But
he's
going to be all right.
Yeah, people can Google that to see what I'm talking about. But Ronaldo to me is more in the Tom Brady sort of vein that, and he recently talked Tom Brady out of retirement.
I know, I saw it. It's amazing.
So I don't know if Ronaldo's ready to like sort of quote unquote pack it in. I think he might still try to be chasing Champions League titles and records and things for a few more years. So I think Ronaldo's sort of end of career move would be to go back to Portugal. I just have a sense that that's where he wants to end his career.
But you don't think either one of them is winning another champion?
No.
Okay.
Ronaldo did have that hat trick against Tottenham, and I had this whole thing prepared again, had we done a podcast last week, where I was going to compare his hat trick to LeBron's 56-point performance that he recently had. Kind of this great player that's not as great as he used to be, but can still summon up the strength on a given day to kind of deliver a performance like that and remind everybody, put some respect on that name kind of thing. Didn't you find those performances similar to LeBron's 56 points? And I'm looking at Luis Aguilar now because I know you have no clue what I'm talking about with LeBron. But
I'm sorry, did you say something? All right, what else?
All right. Final question of the pod. At Marky Tim, what do you think of NWSL team names such as Angel City, OL Reign, and Sky Blue?
Okay, so for those that don't know, NWSL kicked off. I think it's right to say it kicked off because it kicked off in the form of a Challenge Cup to start off the season in a very strange, but I get it from a marketing perspective, way. So that people know, so we have Angel City, Chicago Red Stars, Houston Dash, Kansas City Current, New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC, North Carolina Courage, OL Reign, Orlando Pride, Portland Thorns FC, Racing Louisville FC, San Diego Wave FC, one of the new teams along with Angel City, and Washington Spirit. So those are the names. When it comes to names, we've talked about this before on the pod. The desire to be cosmopolitan, to be global, to be traditional is legendary. And I think the pendulum, unfortunately, has swung so far over to that side that it has become incredibly boring in terms of the naming. And I know that there is a method to the madness. There is a desire, like I said, to appeal globally and to not, appear like you're, well, for lack of a better word, too American. I love that there are different and interesting names when it comes to this league. The FC thing I can give or take, and then maybe that's just a concession that you put on. But even the Thorns, so traditional types of names. I think those are great. So the new ones, Angel City FC, I think they've done a great job in terms of their branding so far, and they just started off with a 1-1 tie in that Challenge Cup. That start off with Washington Spirit. So excuse me, not the Washington Spirit, the San Diego Wave in their first official games. Now these games were not played at the official stadium because Angel City is going to play at the bank here in Los Angeles. So they're in the midst of this Challenge Cup. I like them. I like these names. I like that they are different. Yes, there is some soccer to them, but I think it makes it distinct. And I think in this day and age where there are so many teams and at so many different levels and men's and women's and MLS and USL and all those different things, you got to try to do something to set yourself apart without being perceived as making fun or ridiculing the game. And there has to be obviously some quality behind what you're doing, but credibility. And a lot of times, unfortunately, we associate credibility with traditional types of names. I don't know. I guess what my favorite would be. I like the Angel City, and I know it's in my backyard here, but I think they've done a good job. I like the Thorns. OL Reign is interesting in terms of the connection with France and how that all came about. I think my favorite is Gotham FC. I think of all of them. So I think they've done a pretty good job. San Diego Wave is, I mean, it's okay. It's kind of traditional, and it's got a little, indoor feel to it. But it's fine. I don't think any of these names are necessarily problematic, but I like that there's some differentiation. Who do you pick, Mossy? Anybody that you like?
My favorite team name?
I mean, from the NWSL. Courage, the Pride, Thorns, Racing Louisville. Racing. We don't have a racing in Major League Soccer. Nobody's done that yet. We've done a Sporting, and we've done a Dynamo and that kind of stuff, but nobody's done a racing yet in Major League Soccer. So that's kind of unique and different. Racing Louisville.
Yeah, Angel City and Gotham FC. I like those.
Yeah, those are some good things. Anyway, that league has kicked off, like I said, in the form of the Challenge Cup, and then the full season will kick off here in a few weeks, and I'm looking forward to that. Anything else, Mossy?
That's it.
All right, we're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, it's the end of our show, and at the end of each and every show, I give you my one for the road. Don't go anywhere. Okay, we're back, and it's the end of the show, and at the end of each and every show, as you know, I give you my one for the road. Just want to bring everybody's attention to something that is going on. We, over the years here at the State of the Union, we've talked about college soccer and what college soccer is and what college soccer isn't. I am 51 years old. I am a product of a generation that used college soccer as a pathway and as a developmental tool to bigger and better things when it came to my professional soccer career. We all know that pathway has not completely dried up, but significantly changed and narrowed over the years. And we all know the challenges that college soccer faces from both the men's and women's perspective, but more so from a men's perspective at this point in terms of the alternative pathways that exist for elite players. However, there is an existing history, there is an existing infrastructure. And trying to get college soccer to recognize the opportunity and the gold mine that they have has been difficult. However, through the efforts of a number of people over a number of years, including Maryland coach and U.S. soccer legend Sasho Shirovsky, over the last couple of years, they have brought to bear all of the powers that be when it comes to soccer to try to get the NCAA to change the schedule and to go to a split season. For as long as I can remember, it has been basically one season that happens in the fall. It's a very compact and therefore difficult season where you're playing multiple games a week, and it comes and goes, and then you're basically done with it. It's an archaic type of way, but the NCAA certainly wasn't founded, nor looks to soccer to guide it. So over the last couple of years, they brought the proposal to get not necessarily more games, but to spread them out over more time and have this split season happening in the fall and in the spring that enables players to develop throughout the year as opposed to just one period. The vote was supposed to happen before the pandemic, and they put it off for the pandemic. Starting in April, there will be another vote, and they are going to vote for possibly having this change. It could fundamentally change college soccer, but it also could fundamentally change the developmental process. And as I said, the existing infrastructure and the resources that college soccer already has in terms of the coaching that they have, the facilities that they have, the competition that they have, and the history that they have, and utilizing that. Because from my perspective as a soccer person, I want every one of those opportunities being utilized to give people more and more opportunities to play soccer. If you can marry it with a great education and an educational opportunity, I think that that's great. But too often now, people are having to pick and choose. And there will still be many that pick and choose the way of developmental academies and then signing early and bypassing college. That's That's not going to change. As a matter of fact, no matter what is done, that is still going to be the preferred way for many young elite type of players. But everybody develops in different ways. And to the extent that a young soccer player can be coming out of high school and look at college as, not only am I going to get the education, but I'm also going to get the proper soccer. And part of that soccer upbringing and that development is going to enable me to play for, this split season, which is going to ultimately make me a better soccer player. So if you're out there and you have the ear of anybody when it comes to the NCAA, and we know it's a behemoth and it's very, very difficult to move, and who knows if this will come to fruition now or later, but think good thoughts for the people that have been involved. If you can help them in any way, we'll put out as much information as we can as we get closer. And as a matter of fact, I might even have Sasho on the pod to talk this through and give you a special pod, just a quick synopsis of what is going on and why this is important. And why this is important, not just for college soccer, but for American soccer going forward to be able to do this. Think good thoughts. And as I said, to the extent that anybody can do things out there to change minds and win hearts and minds about why this is the right thing to do, not just for soccer, but for sports and athletics in college, please do so. And thank you ahead of time to Sasho and to everybody that has spent so much time and energy to try to change this. It seems like a small little thing. And in the greater scheme of things, it is. But because of this behemoth that NCAA is, that doesn't look to soccer to change and to move things, even this small little change would be an incredible feat, an incredible accomplishment, and would go a long way to making at least some sort of change to make the college experience much more relevant than it has been in recent times. Because if that doesn't happen, it's only going to continue to go the other way. And my fear is that the opportunity and the privilege, yes, the privilege, but the opportunity and the reward that can come from that college experience is being lost on now multiple generations because of the simple fact that the season is not something that is conducive to development of the soccer players. So anyway, keep an eye out for that, and we'll keep you informed of what's going on. Moss, anything before we go?
That's it.
All right, listen, we, as I said, we find ourselves in very interesting times, and the next 10 days are going to be incredibly interesting. And I hope, I hope everybody is thinking good things and being positive about this, because I'm not cautiously optimistic, Mossy. I am incredibly optimistic. And this isn't Pollyanna. This isn't me being, red, white, and blue delusion clouding my vision. I do believe that this is a team that is primed for a big window and to get over that hurdle and to bring us back to where we belong. But ultimately, that's Greg Berhalter and these players that he has brought in. It's their job, and get it done, as the saying goes. All right, we'll be back again next week, same time, same place, with hopefully some good news when it comes to 2 games that will have been played by that point. And who knows, maybe next time we talk, we will be already booking our trip to Qatar and World Cup 2022. We'll see you then. And until then, as always, size the day.
You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops every week. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.